in this video, I'm going to be talking about 2D lists. So let's make a list. And let's say that this list had values hello, burger, and Jitty. Okay, once we have this, let's actually change the name list because that's actually not a good name for it. Let's change it to guy. If we want to print out some specific value in this list, let's say the first one, we can write down guy and then 0. Now, for those of you that are super new to coding, lists are iterables, which means that they have indices. So if you want to access some specific value inside of the list rather than just the list itself, one of the values inside of the list, then you'd put down an index after the variable name, marked by these closed brackets. So guy 0 simply represents hello here, which is the first value of the list, right? There's nothing more first than hello inside of this list, right? We wrote hello first. Now, for those of you that are confused, 0 represents the first value. Isn't the first value represented by 1? Well, here's the thing, computers start counting at 0. So keep in mind that the indices of lists start at 0. If we wanted to print out Jitty in this case, we wrote down guy 2. And then we get Jitty. Okay? Since Jitty is at index 2, right? This is index 0, this is index 1, and this is index 2. Now, how about 2D lists? So let's create a grid. And let's say this grid had 1, 2, 3. And let's say there was another list, 4, 5, 6. And 7, 8, 9. Now, this right here is a 2D list. So what is a 2D list exactly? It's simply a list inside of list. Right. There's multiple lists. 1, 2, 3 is its own list because it's enclosed by these brackets. And 4, 5, 6 is another list. And 7, 8, 9 is another list. But here's the thing about these 2D lists. If I were to print out grid 0, for example, we're not only going to print out one value, we're actually going to print out an entire list. So grid 0 is the entire list. Or in this case, the entire first list since we wrote down index 0. So each list has its own index due to the fact it's separated by these commas. But each list here is its own index. And oftentimes, when you have a 2D list, you separate each inner list into its own line. All right, so we have this square looking shape here. And let's say that we wanted to print out the second list, right? Which is index 1 in this case. 4, 5, 6, right? Print out the third list, index 2. 7, 8, 9. Now here's the thing. What if we wanted to access a specific value inside of the inner list, right? Right now, we're only printing out grid 0, which is this entire list itself, 1, 2, and 3, correct? Well, if we want to access a specific value or change a specific value inside of this list, then we can write down grid 0 with closed brackets after it with a proper index, let's say 2. Okay, so grid 0 is this entire first list, and index 2 of this first list is the number 3. So if I were to print out this, we would get the number 3. Now if you want to change the value at grid 02, you can print out grid 02 and set that equal to 6, for example. And if we print out grid again, then we'd realize that now this 02 value is 6, okay, because we set it equal to 6. We can also set it equal to 22, or for example, okay? But when you print these out, it's not going to print it in different lines, okay? When you print these two-dimensional lists, it's not going to print it out, which is quite annoying in some cases, especially if you're using modules or libraries that take advantage of two-dimensional lists, and you just end up getting an entire slew of characters that are extremely long and look completely garbled up. But separating your each individual inner list into different lines is super helpful, okay? So if I want to print out grid, let's say I want to print out number 9, we put down grid 2. Since number 9 is in the third inner list, and number 9 is the third index, or index 2 of this list right here. So if I want to print out number 9, you put down grid 2, which is the third list, right? Grid 2 is the third list, so this is index 0, index 1, and index 2. So this list right here is the third list. And then index 2 of the third list is number 9, which is what we have here. If you want to change the value of number 2, which is this value right here, then you can set it to 100, let's say. And once we print it out, 9 should turn to 100. So we can print out the before and after. You realize that this 9 changes to 100. So 2D lists are at least somewhat useful in certain projects like Minesweeper. Minesweeper, you could use 2D lists on, let's see, tic-tac-toe, you can use 2D lists on. I guess you can already tell that this kind of looks like a tic-tac-toe board, right? This 3x3 two-dimensional list. You can assign specific values to these. You know, that kind of represents your tic-tac-toe board. But two-dimensional lists also can be used for matrices if you want to do linear algebra with it. There's plenty of math libraries in Python. Two-dimensional lists are helpful. That's the point I'm trying to get at. Another thing you can do with two-dimensional lists is use for loops. So in my previous video, I talked about nested for loops. But let's say for I in range. Actually, let's say for I in grid. Okay. And for j in I, print j. So what does this do? Well, I and grid are tied together in this case, right? So grid is an iterable. Therefore, I iterates over each of the values inside of grid. So if I were to print out I, right, I would get each list individually. Okay, so every iteration, every time we loop through this for loop, I simply changes to a different value of this list. So I is equal to an iterable as well, right? I is the values inside of the outer iterable grid, but I is also an iterable itself. It's the lists. Since we printed it out, you can see the list here. So therefore, j can actually iterate over I. So j holds the values of each value in I. So if I print this out, we actually print out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you can use nested for loops, right, to print out all the values or manipulate every single value inside of a 2D list. If I were to show you a better, I guess, representation of what's going on here, you can simply think of the first index as the row. So let's write down row, and the second index as the column. All right. So this first index represents the row if you separate the inner lists into different rows, and this second value represents the column. Okay. You could think of it as that. Now, if you don't understand what this for loop does, I suggest that you watch the for loop video, nested for loop video. It was my previous one. I'll leave a link down in the description for you guys. But that should be it for the video. Last thing, just saying, if you don't understand what's going on in for loops or a lot of things in coding, I suggest you write it down. I'm so serious. Grab a pen and paper. I don't know, make some symbols with the variables, right? And you know, explain the logic or write down the logic inside of on top of a piece of paper. That helps so much. It helps so much, especially if you're taking a CS course. Yeah, they're gonna have you write down what's going on in each of the for loops, like especially an introduction CS course. Okay. But that's it for the video. If you have any questions, put it in the comment section. And if you found this video helpful, consider subscribing, liking the video. Thanks for watching.